Be honest with me for a second. At some point in your life, you've walked down a hallway that smelled like industrial floor cleaner and boiled vegetables. There was a nurse's station with a bowl of hard candy on it. A TV playing a game show about 4 notches too loud. And at the end of that hallway, there was somebody you loved, in a bed with rails on the side. Almost all of us have done that walk. And while you were doing it, you were probably thinking about a lot of things. How thin their arms got, whether they'd recognize you today, whether you're a bad person for not coming more often. You were probably not thinking, I wonder what the EBITDA per bed is in here. But somebody was. Somebody was thinking exactly that, and that somebody probably wasn't even in the building. Here's the thing that got me obsessed with this industry. If you go look at what nursing homes report about themselves, they are barely profitable. The median operating margin in this sector runs somewhere around 1.8%. That's under 2 cents on the dollar. Your local gas station does better than that on Slim Jims. And the industry says this loudly and constantly. We're broke. We're closing. Medicaid doesn't cover our costs. And here's the twist that took me about 3 years to actually understand. That's true. It's also a magic trick. Because a nursing home is not really a business that makes money. It's a business that moves money. And if you only look at the building, you'll never find the profit. The profit already left. It's sitting in a different LLC with a different name, and that LLC is owned by the same guy. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how 10 grand a month from a grieving family turns into a 1.8% margin on a spreadsheet and where the rest of it went. Let's start with my grandmother, because that's where I started. Her name was Ruth. In 2019, she fell in her kitchen in Dayton, broke her hip, spent 11 days in the hospital, and came out the other side unable to live alone. My mom and my aunt did the tour thing. 4 facilities in 2 days. My aunt cried in the parking lot of the second one. The one they picked was called Cedar Ridge. Semi-private room. Nice enough. The bill was $9,400 a month. $9,400 a month for a shared room with a curtain down the middle and a window that looked at a parking lot. Now, I was already working in finance at that point, and I did what finance people do when they're uncomfortable, which is math. Cedar Ridge had 118 beds. If every one of those beds paid what Ruth's bed paid, that building was doing over $13 million a year out of a 1-story brick box built in 1974. I remember standing in that hallway thinking, somebody is getting extremely rich off my grandmother's hip. I was right, and I was also completely wrong about who. So, let's build this business from scratch, the way I'd build it if you and I were sitting down to underwrite a deal. Nursing homes sell one thing, a bed day. 1 person, 1 bed, 1 night, plus everything that comes with it. Meals, meds, help getting to the bathroom, somebody who notices if you stop breathing. Nationally, the median price for a semi-private nursing home bed is about $315 a day. Private room, $355. Annualized, that's $115,000 and roughly $130,000, which is more than the median American household earns in a year for 1 person to sleep in a room they share with a stranger. But almost nobody actually pays that. That $315 is the sticker price. It's the number on the wall at the car dealership. And in this industry, the sticker price is basically a fiction for one specific group of people, the ones with money, who haven't lost it yet. Because here's who's actually paying. There are 3 customers in a nursing home, and they sit in the same building, eat the same food, and pay wildly different amounts. Customer 1, private pay. That's my grandmother for a while, writing checks from a savings account. This is the highest margin resident in the building, and everybody in the industry knows it. It's also the shortest relationship, because a $115,000 a year expense burns through a normal American retirement about as fast as you'd expect. Customer 2, Medicare. And Medicare is the whale. Medicare doesn't pay for old age. This surprises people constantly. Medicare pays for recovery. If you're in the hospital for 3 midnights, and then you get discharged to a skilled nursing facility for rehab, Medicare covers that stay. Up to 100 days, and only if you keep making progress. But the rates are enormous. Under the current payment system, the top case mix adjusted federal rates for skilled nursing run north of $1,000 a day. A typical short-stay rehab resident is bringing in something like $600 to $700 a day, sometimes more. Compare that to the third customer. Customer 3, Medicaid. And Medicaid is the floor of this entire industry. Medicaid is what pays for you after your money is gone, and it pays somewhere in the neighborhood of $250 to $300 a day, depending on your state, which in a lot of states is less than what it costs to actually house and care for that person. Now, here's the part that makes this business genuinely strange. Medicaid is also the majority. Roughly 6 out of every 10 resident days in American nursing homes are Medicaid days. So, picture the P&L. 60% of your building is losing money on purpose. 10 or 15% is Medicare rehab, printing cash. The rest is private pay, slowly going broke on their way to becoming Medicaid. That's the whole game. You are running a money-losing housing operation subsidized by a high-margin rehab clinic bolted onto the side of it. I learned this from a guy named Dale. Dale ran a 140-bed facility outside Columbus, and I met him because a fund I worked with was looking at a portfolio in Ohio, and somebody had to go kick the tires. Dale had spent 18 years as a hotel general manager before he got into long-term care, and he said the transition was easier than anyone expected. He walked me back to his office, and there was a whiteboard with the census on it. Numbers by wing, updated every morning. And he tapped the board and said something I've quoted probably 50 times since. This is a hotel where the front desk is a hospital and the guests can't leave. Then he pointed at one column. Medicare days. 11 residents out of 131. He said, "Those 11 people are the reason the other 120 get to eat." That's not cynicism. That's just the arithmetic. 11 people at $650 a day is roughly $2.6 million a year. That's your entire margin, sitting in 11 beds, and every single one of those people is going to leave in about 3 weeks. Which means the single most important job in a nursing home isn't nursing. It's the person whose entire life is maintaining relationships with hospital discharge planners. That's the sales function. That's it. Somebody in a Honda with a box of bagels going to the same 3 hospitals every week, so that when a 78-year-old with a replaced knee needs somewhere to go, the discharge planner says your name first. Okay, revenue side's done. Now let's spend it. And this is where it stops being fun. Labor is somewhere around 60 to 65% of every dollar a nursing home takes in. There is no version of this business where that's not true. You cannot automate a person who needs help getting out of bed at 3 a.m. Which brings me to Marisol. Marisol was a CNA-certified nursing assistant at the facility where my grandmother was. She was the one who figured out that Ruth would eat if you put the food on the blue plate and wouldn't if you used the white one. Nobody told her that. She just noticed. I asked her once, in the parking lot, what she made. She told me it was a little over $18 an hour. She was working a second job at a Kroger on weekends. Now sit with the math on that for a second, because it's the whole story of this industry compressed into one number. The building was billing $315 a day for that bed. Marisol was responsible for somewhere between 10 and 14 residents on a shift. So the residents she was personally caring for were generating $3,000–$4,000 of revenue a day. She was making about $150. And staff turnover in this industry runs around 50% a year. In some facilities, it's over 100%. Which means the person who knows about the blue plate leaves, and nobody writes it down, and the next person doesn't know, and your grandmother stops eating, and nobody can explain why. That's not a moral failing of one facility. That's what happens when your dominant customer is a state government paying below cost. Now, the part you came for. Because if labor is 65% and Medicaid pays below cost and the median margin is under 2%, why on earth would anyone buy one of these? I asked exactly that question to a broker named Ken in Cleveland. Ken has been selling nursing homes for 22 years. He wears a lot of quarter zips. He laughed at me. Not unkindly, but he laughed. Nursing home beds have been trading around $95,000 per licensed bed. As of late 2025, with pricing running in the low to mid-90s. Individual facilities have crossed $100,000 a bed. 160-bed facilities sold for $52 million. And the cap rates are wild. Skilled nursing trades in the 11 to 13% range. A nice apartment building in a good market might trade at 5, assisted living around 7. An 11% cap rate means the market is screaming, "This is risky." And buyers are lining up anyway. Ken put it like this. He said, "You're not buying a business. You're buying a license, a building, and a relationship with a state government, in that order." The license part matters more than people think. About 2/3 of states have certificate of need laws, which means you cannot just decide to build a new nursing home down the street. You need the state's permission, and the state usually says no. So the existing beds are a closed set. Deals in certificate of need states trade at 11 to 14 times EBITDA. In states without it, 8 to 10. You're buying scarcity that the government created and enforces. Here's the second thing Ken said, and this is where the whole video turns. He said, "Nobody buys the operation. They buy the real estate and they rent it to themselves." And that's the trick. Let me explain it slowly. Because it's legal, it's everywhere. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You buy a nursing home. You put the building in one company, call it Ridgeline Properties. You put the operating license and the staff in a second company, call it Ridgeline Care. You own both, completely, 100%. Then Ridgeline Properties charges Ridgeline Care rent, and you get to pick the number. Then a third company for management services. It charges a management fee. You pick that number too. Maybe a fourth for therapy, a fifth for staffing, a sixth for pharmacy. Some chains have dozens of these. Now look at Ridgeline Care's books, which is the entity that files the cost report and talks to the regulator and lobbies the legislature. Revenue comes in, rent goes out, management fees go out, therapy contract goes out. Margin, 1.8%. Look at the owner's consolidated position, which nobody files anywhere. All of that rent and all of those fees landed in their pocket. Two economists, Ashwin Gandhi at UCLA and Andrew Olensky, actually put numbers on this. Looking at Illinois filings, they found that when a nursing home starts buying real estate services from a related company, its reported costs jump about 20 to 22%. Management services, 25% and up. Same services, same building, just a different name on the invoice. Their estimate, in 2019, about 63% of nursing home profits were hidden through these transactions. 63%. And federal data shows roughly 77% of nursing homes transact with related parties. The academic term is tunneling. I like that word. It's exactly what it sounds like. The money leaves the building through a tunnel you can't see from the hallway. I had this explained to me directly, once, and it's the conversation I think about most. I was at a healthcare real estate conference in Scottsdale. Bad conference, good bar. I ended up next to a guy I'll call Sal, who owned 9 facilities across 2 states. Third generation, his grandfather started with one home in New Jersey in the 60s. I asked him the naive version of the question. Something like, how do you make money at a 1.8% margin? He put his drink down and said, "Kid, I've never made $1 of profit in my life. Ask my accountant." Then he grinned and drew the whole structure on a cocktail napkin, cheerfully, for 40 minutes, because none of it is illegal. It's the same structure plenty of businesses use. It's just that here, the payer is a state Medicaid program setting its rates off those cost reports, which means the higher your reported costs, the better your argument for a rate increase. Sal said one more thing that stuck with me. He said, "The building never makes money. The building isn't supposed to make money. The building is the meter." Now, I want to be fair here, because this industry gets flattened into villains a lot, and the real picture is messier and sadder than that. There's a woman I'll call Deb, who I talked to for a research project a couple years back. Her mother was in a 60-bed facility in rural Kansas. In 2023, the family got a letter. The home was closing, 90 days to relocate. That facility wasn't owned by a private equity fund. It was owned by a family who had run it for 30 years. Medicaid was 78% of their census. The state rate hadn't kept up with wages. They tried to sell it and got no bids, because at 78% Medicaid in a rural county, there's no deal. Deb's mother ended up 90 minutes away. Deb visited less. Her mother declined faster. That's not a spreadsheet outcome, but it is one. And that's happening at scale. Around 85% of new nursing home deserts counties, with essentially no facility, are showing up in rural America. So you've got two things true at the same time. Some owners are extracting enormous hidden profits, and some owners genuinely cannot make the numbers work and are handing back the keys. Both, simultaneously, in the same industry, which brings us to right now, and to the thing that changed the math for every operator in America. In 2024, the federal government finalized a staffing mandate. Minimum 3.48 nursing hours per resident per day, including registered nurse coverage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The industry called it existential. It's gone. Congress blocked enforcement until 2034. Courts vacated pieces of it. And CMS formally repealed the staffing minimums and the 24/7 RN requirement in an interim final rule that took effect the 2nd of February 2026. CMS's own estimate, repealing it saves facilities about $55 billion over 10 years. The same analysis projects it adds $3.3 billion in Medicare costs from additional hospitalizations. That is the entire economics of this industry stated in two numbers by the government itself. $55 billion saved on one side of the ledger, $3.3 billion of hospital bills on the other. Those are not the same people paying and receiving. Meanwhile, the 2025 reconciliation law is squeezing the provider tax mechanism states use to fund Medicaid. The cap drops from 6% toward 3.5% over the next several years. States are already moving. Idaho put in a 4% across-the-board provider rate cut. Colorado reversed a rate increase it had already granted. So, labor costs are unconstrained, and the payer that covers 60% of your beds is getting squeezed. If you're wondering why deal volume is still hot in a sector like that, remember, Ken, you're not buying the margin. You're buying the license, the building, and the tunnel. Let me leave you with the number that actually keeps me up. Occupancy in this sector sits around 83%. Demographically, that will not last. The oldest baby boomers are turning 80 right now. The 85 and over population in this country is on track to roughly double, and we are not building beds. Certificate of Need laws make sure of that. So, you've got demand rising into a supply that legally cannot expand, in an industry where 63% of the profit is invisible, and the people doing the actual work make $18 an hour. I don't have a clean ending for that. I've looked at a lot of industries, and I usually walk away with a thesis. This one I walk away from with a knot in my stomach. Because here's the last thing. About 7 in 10 Americans who turn 65 will need long-term care of some kind. That's not a niche outcome. That's most of us, or most of our parents. Which means at some point, you're going to be in that hallway again with the linoleum and the game show and the bowl of hard candy. And now you'll know that the building isn't the business. The building is the meter. If this was useful, subscribe. I do one of these breakdowns every week, taking apart a business that looks boring from the outside and turns out to be something else entirely. And drop a comment with the industry you want me to tear apart next. I read them, and about half these videos come from you. See you next week.